Hello, and welcome to COMP3218's Let's Play for Coursework 2. I'm Adrian Chapman, a lecturer on the course, and with me is...
Hi, I'm Callum, and I'm one of the demonstrators on the course.
So we have asked the students for their second coursework to provide us a game that has an interactive narrative. Are you ready, Callum, to dive into our first game?
Yeah. So as you can see, this one is called 3/4 Dead, which is interesting. I'm gonna. Ooh. We get to select a character. I'm not sure what the green box. Oh, I see. Guess that's to show that we haven't selected a character. Let's go with this sort of slightly redhead girl. Okay, I pressed start and now it's not responding, so that's...
Uh-oh.
Oh, okay. I'm gonna turn that down because that is incredibly loud.
Very loud music.
There we go. Okay, there is definitely music.
There is logbook recording. I can't quite read the text. It's a little too small on my screen.
Yeah.
Hopefully you can.
So it says, new logbook entry, mission X74W221, day 34. In preparation for interstellar travel, the maintenance crews are performing vital assessments of key systems. Many areas of the ship are being studied and many problems are diagnosed. My new crew has been assigned to this machine room on deck 83. Log successfully captured. Please report to deck manager Chloe for task assignment. Okay. Use the mouse to look around. See, so this is interesting because it doesn't seem to be capturing any of my input. Wondering if that's because I've got a gamepad connected. Let me take... Nope. That apparently was not it. So I cannot move.
Alright.
Alright. Tell you what, I will restart it just in case it was the... just in case it was the Xbox controller breaking it. I don't have anything else weird plugged in. Alright. Actually, well, I mean, it was... Okay, there we go. Must have been that. Okay.
Excellent.
I
Okay.
I can... Interesting.
So, they've obviously remembered a little bit of their previous coursework, and I appreciate that even though it was text, it was put up on a screen as if, it fits in with the rest of the theme. All right, where are we going?
Okay, so we need to go find someone called Chloe. It's a little bit jerky. That's not the recording. It is jumping around a fair bit. Okay. Right, okay, so we can only move forward and steer. So we're a little bit like a ship here. Hello, who are you?
Have we met Chloe?
We have just now. Hello, you. Okay, so that's interesting. So on the menu screen back there, it said press G to greet, but when I came here, it said press T to talk.
It did, yes.
G
and now there's
did
two
work.
screens out. Okay.
Okay, so on the left we've got management assigned you to this crew from the catering service team, right? So I can choose either yep or that's correct, but I'm looking forward to working with your crew. Yep.
A little bit of... Oh, we went for yep, okay.
Anyway, today's assignment is assessing the hyperdrive generators in the machine room on this deck. I have asked one of our technicians, Lewis, or possibly Louis, to begin removing the access panel so we can start running our diagnostic tests. I don't think you've met him. He knows his stuff, but I find him very strange. I really don't like his attitude. I mean, that's not a great thing for a supervisor to say to you immediately on joining a crew.
Yes.
So, the responses are, some staff on the ship are a bit odd, I don't understand how they were picked for the mission, or, he can't be that bad, I think you might just be overreacting. I think worker solidarity, so let's go with number 2. Apparently, that was a bad choice. Okay, that's not good. There was no safety system test scheduled for today. Please go check on Lewis in the machine room while I sort this out in the control room. Okay, I guess that's the control room then, so this must be the way to the machine room. Oh, blimmin' heck. Okay, well Lewis appears to be... It seems maybe it's too late for him. Yep, door's locked. That's never a good sign. Nothing good has ever happened after a door has locked behind you. Oh, hey, hopefully you can hear me with the deck intercom system. Stop the alarms, but I'm not sure what happened. So this is Chloe talking. Security system is full stop. Deck-wide lockdown, I can't get you out of the machine room. How is Lewis? So you can either say he has injured himself and I think he's unconscious, I'm trying to wake him, or I don't think that is your problem, just reboot the systems. I mean, that's needlessly combative, so let's go with 1. Get him to the medbay, I'll start rebooting the security systems. How am I going to get him Ooh, okay, I can this... So I can choose either to scream at him, or do the, not quite the typical, like, trained first aid response. Let's go with number 2. Let's try and at least be... Oh, he's up. Oh, hello, thank you for helping me. I was working on the hyperdrive generator when it powered up. I think we might need to replace the control unit. The deck is in lockdown, but Chloe is working to reset the security systems. Now, Chloe, the bad news, the security system malfunctioned and authorized the control system to begin venting radioactive coolant into the machine room. You need to get out of there now. I can't get the door open, but you can use the manual override. Lewis should know how to sort it. Yeah, I know the system. A code can be used to manually override the system, but I don't remember the code. Did I get the code from the common room to override the door? No, why would I have? Okay, there's a way to manually override it by holding down a button. We can't both leave. It was Lewis's fault he's stuck, so he's gonna hold it while I escape. I mean, it kind of was his fault.
Let's not be too blamey here, you know.
Well, yeah, maybe it wasn't. So the choice is that we can either thank him and leave him to die, or we can offer to hold the button.
Get out of here.
Okay, let's... Thank you,
Thank
Lewis.
you.
We came into... okay, right. We had a little bit of a... I'm gonna... Because it had a go at me for not checking for things in the previous room, so I'm gonna have a little look around. It's interesting that neither of them have opted to go for the, what if we just punch random codes in, and see if we get lucky?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, what's that on the ground?
It's just some tools that Lewis dropped, I think.
Stuff. Okay, never mind.
Can I just
Bye, Luis!
I'm not allowed to press the buttons. He appears to be punching it, which is... Bye-bye. Press T to talk.
Are we stuck there?
Okay, G doesn't work here anymore, so T. After running some tests, it's clear the alarm was set off when the irradiation levels reached an unsafe threshold. If I open this door, we might expose the rest of the ship to deadly radiation levels. I can't let you out. So the responses are, I can stay here and do the repairs before the radiation affects me too much, or please let me out, I'm sure we can disperse the radiation. Let's try and
disperse
fix
the radiation.
it. Oh, disperse it. Okay, right. I'm sorry, I cannot open this door. You are just not worth the risk. I mean, Chloe, you are a terrible manager so far. Both you and Lewis perished due to the radiation. Whether you chose to save the others in the ship or begged Chloe to help you, the ending remains the same. Okay. Think carefully before taking any action that could harm you later on. You died just like... Okay.
So I can see what what fable they're doing here, right?
Yeah. Let's be the blonde dude.
So let's while we work through this again, we've seen a path there. Let's start working through the marks criteria.
Sure.
So we can talk really quickly while you play the next round through about quality. So things in the presentation like information design, graphics, audio. So there is some nice background music. Are there other sounds beyond the background music?
There's like little typewriter noises when people are talking, when the text is coming up. There's a little bit of background foley and stuff. Like I think there was an alarm sound and for doors opening and stuff.
So we've got complementary audio effects and music, which is good. And the graphics themselves seem consistent and effective, and I would even go so far as to say that they are appealing, that I actually feel like, we're in a kind of moody spaceship here and that something bad's going to happen. And what about key information? So what about the information that's being shown? So we have the text box on the side when somebody talks to us. We have our choices kind of down on the right. Oh, look, flashing alarm, somebody just ran. And occasionally we have prompts that tell us, T to talk, G to greet. Is there any other information that we are presented with or that we would need to know?
In terms of the controls and stuff, I don't think so. It's quite like the path is very obvious. You've got these 3 rooms. I guess it's not at all obvious that you need to look around to find some kind of code, but I suppose that's kind of the point.
I do think that is probably the point, isn't it?
Are these things supposed to represent the numbers? They said it was in the wall of the common room, but I don't see any code down here.
Well, you look for that code. We can talk then about meaningful play. So I haven't seen any bugs. Have you? It's reasonably complex and no obvious bugs.
I don't know whether I would classify it as bugs or just kind of awkward controls. But you can do stuff like if you go up against a wall and turn around, you can put the camera on the outside. So that's it's not terrible, but it is a little bit awkward.
Sure. So you've already mentioned it already about the controls. So I have a feeling we're kind of at a reasonable set of usable controls, but I wouldn't necessarily call them smooth controls.
No, the controls are incredibly awkward.
Right. So for this, now we can talk about mechanics. What mechanics do we have in this game that we've identified so far? You can interact with somebody. So you can greet, you can talk.
You can punch, although I don't know.
Oh, you can punch.
I don't know what that would be used for yet. Oh.
Oh, you could punch that button, right? If you were the one to.
I guess. But yeah, it may be that you need to punch the button. Right. Well, I couldn't find a code, so let's. If I just punch. Okay, it doesn't do anything yet. I guess the door hasn't locked it. Oh, has it? Yeah. Okay.
Okay. So, besides walking around, I'm not actually seeing a huge amount of mechanics.
Yeah. I mean, you've got the choosing of dialogue options, but that's it. So.
Okay.
Hey, Lewis. Wake up, you. Set off the alarm.
So, unfortunately, I think we're kind of down at few mechanics. I mean, really, I'm not sure that I've seen anything beyond walking about and choosing the dialogue.
Interesting.
So, are we at a set of mechanics? Like, is that enough, or is that just a few mechanics?
So you can also type in the code. No, okay. So you are allowed to get what is? Oh, okay, right. Oh, so it's saying that I have to press the button now. I can no longer. Interesting. But in the last run through, he was so nice.
Yeah.
Shouldn't have entered. Okay. Well, I don't really. This is a positive result because last time both of us died. At least someone survived this time.
Someone survived it. So let's go talk about now fulfilling the brief. We'll talk about the story engine itself.
Sure.
And so the two things that we want to talk about at this point are the game world's influence on the story or impact on the story, the interplay of the game world to the story, and then how the story impacts the game world. And unfortunately here, I mean, as we were just talking about with the mechanics, that there's not much game going on. There's not a lot of mechanics to choose from. I feel like we are very much immersed in the story. Right? We're definitely in
the boxes.
In a story, but there's not really a game here. So if anything, it almost feels very similar to like, an animated choose your own adventure story where we're just going through, which ending do we want based on the narrative choice that we're picking at this point. So in some way we are impacting the story, impacts the game world. It kind of changes which doors are open or not. But I'm not sure that the game world is impacting the story at all.
I guess the closest we've come to that is this code hidden behind a wall of boxes you need to punch out the way. So if you absolutely ruined a nice neat stacking of all the equipment in this room, you'll see that someone has painted the code onto the wall there, which presumably will allow you to get the good ending, as it were. So there's a little bit. There's a little bit of.
There is a little bit. There is a little bit. So I think we can pass on that one. That there's an example of where the game world impacts the story.
Okay.
And then let's talk about the story to the game world. So in this case, I mean, it's obviously that we are changing the story based on our choices, but I'm not sure what it does to the game world, like how it changes the play that we have here. We think of any examples on this one?
All right. Well, let's see. Wake up. Let's see what happens here. Did we get the code? Yes. What was it? 906. Oh, okay, it doesn't work on that one. 9063. Again, why does he blame me for not getting the code from the room when, like, someone's hid it behind a wall of boxes? Ah. Radiation levels reach an unsafe level. If I open the door, we might expose the rest of the ship to deadly radiation.
I'm just scanning through the game notes now. Do you see a friendship bar on the NPCs?
Oh, those. I assumed they were health bars that were for some reason not at full. Okay, so we got the code, but we still died. So, in that case, like, finding the code doesn't actually have an effect on the outcome, it seems.
Right. Right.
This time I am Lewis.
So I think in this case, I think in this case, like, there really is very little. I mean, there are a couple attempts, very true, but there's very little place. There are very few places where the game world impacts the story, or the story impacts that game world. But let's move on to agency at this point. So, agency has both richness of structure and the quality of choices. So, the richness of structure is kind of like, are there branching points, and are they through the game, versus, and then the quality of choices are, do you as the player have interesting choices, and how are you as a player directed to use those choices through the game, or managing the agency of the player? So I think there are several branching points, right? Depending on how you interact with. I'm looking at the game notes. I will admit I'm cheating somewhat. There are a couple branching points, some of which all lead more or less to the same place.
I'm sorry. I found it more entertaining than I should have that I have just named myself Lewis. So there's what happens if I try to punch Chloe?
Yeah, you can punch Chloe. In fact, that's the very first thing you can do.
I must be Lewis. It doesn't seem to do anything.
Yeah. So even looking at the structure provided, there are somewhat branching points, but they all kind of reconverge into the same place. So there are branching points, but they don't actually take us anywhere. They all effectively lead back to the same ultimate choice.
Yeah, that certainly is the impression I'm getting.
Yeah. And then in terms of choices, I think part of that then it becomes there are very few interesting choices. You've kind of gone through a few situations now where you've tried, we're punching, we're taking down the boxes, we're acting nice, we're not acting nice, and I think we kind of get down to
do this.
We die.
Yeah. And there's seems to be very little indication as to what choices will mean anything, so it's kind of hard to...
That's right.
I don't feel like I have any control of what's happening, because I choose an option, and a little while later something happens, and it doesn't seem to be that connected. Okay,
So if we talk about the design elements, which include both poetics and techniques. So poetics is looking around, do the narrative and the gameplay complement each other or conflict with each other? And this one's really hard because it kind of goes back to the fact that there are so few mechanics and that there's very little gameplay. It's basically just story. So in this case, we're not as bad as so for example, we can start with narrative and gameplay have some conflicts. Some of the mechanics go against the themes of the story, and we're not quite there. We don't go against it. But they don't interfere. So maybe they don't interfere, and the key mechanics have little to do with the story. And I would actually go with that. Like, what does punching down boxes have to do with the theme of this story?
I don't know. I think maybe, I don't know if this is the mechanics, but I think you could argue that at least the setup of the level goes against it, because, like, so the theme is, look before you leap. And it's so far the kind of summary little, like, the bits of summary text we get at the end of, like, how to go you for not looking around sufficiently well, which, makes sense. But you come into this room out here, and, like, the most important piece of information is literally behind a wall of stuff that you are given no indication.
Yeah.
There's no reason to move it. You can't punch anything else out of the way. So I think it definitely feels like right. It's punishing you for something that
you didn't even know was a thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
What happens if I just am very friendly?
I think I agree with you. Now, let's talk about techniques. So I don't think there's actually any pacing. Pacing is unclear or flat through this entire thing. And I think part of it is because you're just making a series of kind of uninformed choices. There's no, there's no mechanics to play. Like, there's no game that you're playing that's getting harder or easier or anything else. And the technique, so technique-wise that we're talking about, what game writing techniques have we seen here? So we've seen dialogue, quite a bit of dialogue, which is, I think, very well done.
Okay, let me turn around. Oh, I want to go in this direction. Why?
Have we seen any other game writing techniques?
They've got the, like, epilogue screen at the end with a sort of written summary, which isn't dialogue.
Sure.
And there's also sort of, I guess there's two sort of mini cutscenes where, when the alarms go off, Chloe runs off into the control room and you can't move and watch that happen. And then there's the kind of cutscene where if you stay behind to punch the button, Lewis runs out and abandons you. Beautiful.
So I think we're at use of more than one game writing technique, and I think that's really nicely done then. So finally, let's talk about feedback. Now, interestingly, one of our criticisms of this particular game so far has been that it's not a game. It does feel very much like a choose-your-own-adventure. And in fact, it turns out that the feedback that they were given in the major feedback was that it's not actually a game, it's a story. And in fact, they wrote it out that it was like a choose-your-own-adventure. So they definitely heard it. And their response to that was that they decided to, they added a friendship bar to the non-playable characters, which actually wasn't very clear to us. And they included mechanics such as punching. And so punching a character makes it decrease while greeting them makes it increase. Depending on the gauge level, their reaction, their way of reacting to events will be different. But both the punch mechanics and the friendliness of the player mechanics still has no impact, like that increase or decrease of friendliness. It doesn't actually have anything to do with the ultimate game, because the only thing that fixes this is using the punch mechanic on the box to find the code. So I feel in this case, so what would have been interesting, let's actually see if we could spin it to a positive. What would have been interesting is there could have been multiple endings, right? And depending, if you punch down those boxes at the beginning, you got the code, you figured it out, you're done. Or if you could get your friendliness level on every character to such a height, somebody would tell you the code or whisper the code, or but if you are friendly to one but unfriendly to the other, then maybe Chloe whispers the code to Luis and he gets out but you don't, or something along these lines, where in that case that punching and the talking dialogue with the friendliness actually would be integrated as part of the game. It wouldn't just be a story here. Anyways, that's a bit of an aside. The second feedback was about the moral of the story of look before you leap. They had no way to look for clues, so they put a bay window in to see the machine room before entering it, particularly to see a big visible radiation sign, as well as a system to unlock the door. I totally actually missed that.
There's a radiation sign?
If you disobey Chloe's orders and go into the control room when the alarm is ringing, the signs are also indicating there's radiation. So I would say in this case, feedback has been addressed, and the changes have had limited success, to be honest. I think they heard the feedback, but they didn't actually take it far enough to actually make it a game and think about how those mechanics change or are incorporated into the game. It's still very much a choose your own adventure.
Yeah, so like the instance they give of like you can greet characters to make them more friendly. As far as I can tell, you can't actually greet Lewis. You can only greet Chloe. And that only works when you first go up to talk to her. And when you do that, it comes up with a big press T to talk.
Yeah.
So it feels like, they've put that in there, but it feels like they have tried to trick you into not doing it, which I don't know, it's not made clear that you're given an option to either greet her or talk to her without greeting her, which is considered ruder and so she doesn't like you as much. That's not in any way made clear.
Yeah.
So yeah, I agree that other than punching the boxes, it does feel like a choose your own adventure book with slightly janky controls.
Yeah, yep. Alrighty, well, let's move on to the next game.
Let me see if I think I might have found a way to survive. Aha, there we go. If you do greet Chloe, you can get her liking you enough that you can escape.
Right.
We found the good ending.
Alright, and on to our next game, Thirsty Goat.
I can make this one full screen. Yeah, so straight off the bat, we've got a nice title screen with some really nice music.
I don't know. I'm not sure I'm going to go for really nice here. This one might drive me up the wall soon.
It's a nice upbeat chip tune.
There we go. We'll go for that.
Okay. But continue to begin the story of the Thirsty Goat. There was already a start button. Okay. We take you to the Squish. Non-predator animals. Where non-predator animals used to wander and flourish, but in the last few years the town has experienced a drought. Citizens were forced to venture out to fetch water. It's dangerous. Many non-predators have left to fetch water and never returned. We now take you to the town of Squish, where Mr. Goat's quest to bring water home is just about to begin. Alright. Okay.
So we can already see we've got some basic controls written in there. We've got health out of 100. Oh, we've got some basic bounding. You can't go to the left past that wall. Get close to a villager, talk to them. So they at least sort of remember their tutorial coursework, practice the skills before they can move on.
So he just says, I can't respond to him. He just tells me he's thirsty. Okay. I mean, that's fine.
Very thirsty.
Okay. Hello, I think it's time you went to fetch water for our town. I mean, some copy, a bit of copy I think would have been good.
Well,
it's telling me they want water for the town goat. Although maybe that is actually what's intended. I assumed he was just calling me goat, but... Are you ready to fetch water? No. I just heard your... Jeez. Okay, that's... Put it up quite... I think it's time for you to... Oh, okay. So, if we refuse, our mum dies instantly. And then we're forced to go anyway. That's... I mean, that sounded like he was like a threat, really. Mm-hmm. I'm given the impression that he actually murdered our mum. Hello. The brave goat who has left the village to fetch water. Oh, and press continue. You better not embark on your adventure unarmed. You might have some sustenance. Give you special abilities. You may only have the milk or the chocolate.
I want chocolate. Sorry. What are our options here?
So, chocolate lets us hit people and take less damage, and the milk lets us shoot people. I think chocolate, yeah. Chosen chocolate. In geographic up those enemies. They don't belong here in the jungle. Press or hold the space bar to perform a melee attack. Okay, so we punch. There's a little sound effect, a little animation. Let's see if there is maybe a little bit. Okay, there's also an enemy up here. Ah! Okay, so the enemies seem to kind of float, which is actually really threatening. Danger, poisonous water. Alright, I'll actually fight one of these. That was a really awful sound. So,
it really did. It was...
I mean...
I have to go to the bathroom now.
Like, yeah, it's nice that they have a death sound, but... Oh... It's very unpleasant. How do I punch him? Okay, no, don't punch Mr. Pink. How do
you free him? Oh, do you want to save Mr. Pink? You have a question there. It got carried up in the... How do you answer that?
What? Maybe it's a health bar for the box? Ah, it is. There we go. Does Pink have anything to say? He's grateful. So far we've encountered
He's going to help with crossing? I missed that. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, he said he's going to repay us if we meet again. Which seems fair. It's hard for him to repay us if we don't meet again. Right, come on. Here we go.
Keep playing. I'm going to start us in around the quality. So, because we've seen quite a bit already, actually. We've heard that there's really good music. There is complimentary, and even though we are both completely squished about that squish sound, it's appealing effects and music. The graphics are consistent and effective. And the key information, I think, is all shown. We have health on us, we have health on the cage, the bad guys.
Where are all these enemies coming from? Wait, if I stand on his head, can they reach me? Yes, okay, alright. Ugh. Okay. Surprised you made it this far. There are two ways you can go from here, through the caves or the desert. Both of them are hazardous. Choose wisely. Seduction. So the cave has lots of enemies, and the desert is full of water. Which is a bit unusual, but okay. Let's go the way without the awful squishy enemies. Right, sorry.
So we've had a choice there, haven't we? We've basically just had a little bit of choice.
Ooh, what's down here?
We'll remember that for later. So then let's talk about meaningful play. So we've seen actually quite a few mechanics at this point. We have melee versus shooting projectiles. We have walking around, jumping. We've got interacting with the characters. Well, it's not really interacting with the characters. Do we have any other interactions that we've seen?
Nope. Oh.
Or mechanics, sorry, that we've seen.
Apparently I'm not skilled enough to deal with the desert. So you can break people out of the cages. I don't know if you said that. Because you can free the trapped villagers. These fish bounce very high.
I love these fish.
Press X to look before you leave. Well, that's we can
do that. Press X.
We can just move the camera further out, so I'm just going to keep that. I mean, it's on the nose, but I'm curious to know if that would have worked earlier in the game. Oop! Looking did not help. Okay, so no, you cannot do that earlier on. Oh, we've already freed him. Oh, nice. So yeah, we've now got the mechanic where you can look.
So I think at this point, we could probably say we definitely have a set of consistent mechanics. The question is it is it a set of complementary mechanics? Is it a wide set of complementary mechanics? I think it's a set of complementary mechanics for sure, but I'm not sure that it's a wide set yet.
Yeah, I definitely agree that it's complementary. I think, yeah, I feel like it's kind of on the edge of being a wide set, and we might,
so okay,
in the near
why don't we
future,
take them
see
halfway
additional.
between?
Yeah, I think, especially given that they've just introduced this new look further button. I won't be. They might introduce some more a bit later on, but for now, yeah, I feel like it's definitely in between. There we go.
Right.
Okay.
So that's fine. We'll take them halfway between those two. I think that's good.
Goat died. Okay, I'll try that again.
How about the controls? Since you're talking about the jump right now and not being able to do it, how are the controls? Are they reasonable controls with smooth and usable? Are they intuitive, smooth and usable controls?
I think the controls are pretty good. I'm not. So W for jump works fine. But the fact that you can't also press space has caused me to just walk off a couple edges. Now, maybe that's me being an idiot, but it would have been nice if you could have both of them, because I'm very used to space being jump. Yeah, I don't want our mum to die for no reason, so I'm gonna jump past him.
Have we seen any bugs in this game yet? I think it's a reasonably complex game, and there's no bugs, no obvious bugs.
Milk at people. Yeah, I certainly don't think we've encountered any bugs. Oh, crikey. Oh, there's the fact that these enemies can sort of float. Which, okay, well that also explains why it's not space to jump, space is attack. But I promise that wasn't an intentional...
Sure. Because we've been trained so long that space is jump, right?
See, these
so it doesn't quite get intuitive on that one.
Which
talk about maybe is a story engine. Yeah, we'll let that go. Yeah. Story engine time. Game world to story, and then story's impact on game world. So let's talk about examples where the game world impacts the story.
Well, so far we've had. You can choose which direction you go, which I'm not sure that really counts as impacting the story. But if you die, all of the villagers die of thirst. Wait, no, can I go back? Ooh, interesting. I can go back. I forgot to save Mr. Pig. Which I think when we get far enough along, this point here, where we can save Mr. Pig. Oh. I accidentally sent us to the desert. Okay, well there's another guy down here we can save. So we can save these people. And they say they're going to make it up to us later, so I assume later on they will do something that in some way affects the story.
Have we found the fox scene yet?
No, I've failed to reach that point so far.
Yeah, so I'm looking through the game notes as we go through this, and indeed, so I think the places where the story impacts the game is there's that choice of which route they're going to take.
Oh my God, I'm so bad at this.
And there's more fighting in one. There's jumping on the other. You're in the death drop now that they've called it. And then supposedly there's a fox scene where you could choose to follow an NPC, and doing so would actually add extra tasks to you to do. So in this case, there are some examples where the game impacts the story, but I'm not sure that they yet impact the story in important ways. So for example, the choice of this path is, yes, you can go one way or the other, and that changes the kind of gameplay that you would have. But you could imagine that if you picked up a key in one and a bucket in the other, or failed to pick up one bucket or a key, then it would then change the story that goes on. Once you have the bucket, well, you I don't know, think of some way to incorporate that into the story. But then, in that case, what you've done in the game, that picking up the key or the bucket, changes the story as opposed to just changing the game itself. So I think in this case, there's some examples where the game does impact the story a little bit, but it's not a huge impact. And then the story to the game world. Are there any examples where the story impacts the game world?
So I mean, I guess you could argue that those choices as to which direction you take, they're done through dialogue with a character, so maybe you could argue that story.
Sure.
But
maybe.
Blue potion adds 25.
Yeah.
Okay.
I feel like there are a few sparse, minor examples of where the story impacts the game world.
But you didn't ask me to kill the slimes. But so, regarding, like, you know, the saving of these people, it actually, as far as it seems like later on you get a gameplay buff. But that's not really a narrative difference. So, we've got a fox.
Some of this might be that we haven't quite gotten to this. So the player is faced with the choice of whether to use their combat mechanic to free a pink pig from a cage. The number of pink NPCs freed from the cage corresponds to the narrative of the pink NPC in the fox scene. If there are no NPCs saved or freed, the pink monster is unenthusiastic and says it's a shame the player didn't come across its siblings during their journey. Okay, so I think it was possible that we've just not seen it entirely. I got to the game at this point, so I think we won't be harsh that there are some examples of where the story impacts the game world.
Ooh, a little cutscene.
So let's talk about agency. What kind of branching points have we seen here? We've definitely seen where we can choose the path we take in the game itself.
Yeah.
We can choose whether we take chocolate or milk. Let's take a look at their game notes.
You can choose whether or not to kill off your mum.
Well, let's kill.
Which?
So there are a few branching points in their diagram of the game. So, do you kill all the slimes? Do you have milk or chocolate? Do you immediately go on the quest? Do you take desert or caves? How many pink monsters are saved? Do you go with the fox to the well? And indeed, especially the pink monsters. So the desert or the cave has a stylistic, the type of game that you're going to play, right? The number of pink monsters and whether to go with the fox or not actually change the story ending because of or has the possibility to change the story ending because of the extra health points and tasks that you have to do.
I mean, those are narrative, not narrative, sorry, those are gameplay changes. Like, you get extra health.
Yes. Yeah, they are gameplay. That extra health is gameplay change too, you're quite right. There are different endings. Hang on, are there different endings?
I mean, we've seen, I guess, the de facto ending of you died and failed. And,
you die.
We did successfully go to the correct well and kill the giant green monster there.
Okay, so you
this
beat
time
the boss.
We'll go with the fox and we'll see what happens.
Okay.
I said when we eventually get to the fox.
If you get to the fox and beat the clock, you are trapped in a well. Sorry to spoil that. Sorry, if you don't beat the clock, you're trapped in a well. If you do beat the clock, then you hit the boss again. And if you beat the boss, then you will win. So there are different paths through this. So we have several branching points. And they are existing, I think, throughout the game.
Well, let's take the
what
cave
about the
this
choices,
time.
though? So are there? There are some choices. Is there choice and an attempt to manage player agency?
That's an extremely awkward thing. I mean, attempts to manage player agency.
Yeah.
I mean, they do give you the indication. Okay, wow, that is. I'm not fighting him. They do give you the.
I think the real player
that you have that choice to go and free people, right? Like, yeah.
Exactly. You have the choice to free people, and you also have the choice to. Are you going to take the desert or the forest, right?
Yeah.
So there is some attempt at with agency here.
Oh my god.
Let's talk a little bit about the poetics of this. So, are the narrative and the gameplay complementary to each other?
So you've got that. That one point in the desert level where you have to like use you get to bring your camera out so you can see the rest of the level, but I don't like in a very literal sense it's like, yeah, you need to look further ahead before you jump out, but that feels kind of a stretch to say that it really fits with the theme.
Yeah. So how about this? Narrative and gameplay do not interfere with one another, but the key mechanics have little to do with the themes of the story.
Okay, so you can't... Oh, no, you can jump with this.
I think we're slightly better than that.
No. I got stuck.
So the other choice, a little bit further than that, is narrative and gameplay complement one another as the key mechanics are in keeping with the themes of the story. And I don't think we're all the way there, but I think we're slightly better than they don't interfere with each other.
I don't really think they complement each other. Like they're there and they're fine, but I don't see how this really. You know, I don't see how running down this corridor and shooting slimes really has anything to do with the theme.
Yeah. I think that's some of the problem here. So pacing-wise, is there some ascending pacing?
I mean, it definitely gets more difficult. We've got like this kind of mid-boss fight at the end of each of the levels.
Yep. And in fact, I think there's a final peak given that big boss. So I think there's ascending pacing with a clear final peak.
How do I can't shoot upwards though. It follows. Wait, do I? Okay.
And finally, on this, there's technique. So we've actually seen quite a few writing techniques in this game, right? There's dialogue.
Yeah. We have the little preambles.
Thank you.
There's a cutscene at the very end when you go to the this is. Come on.
Yep.
Come on.
So
there we
we've
go.
seen
At
least 3 of them. So I think we've seen multiple attempts at.
Oh, we saved the brother and the sister. Gonna give us our best potion so we get even more health. And we killed all of the slimes for this alien. And he gives us an extra life. Lovely. As if we run past
now we're on to feedback, and while you keep working through this, I'm going to go read the feedback. So, feedback. They only had narrative choices initially, and during the lab, they were told to add greater variation with choices to involve more impacts from the game world to the narrative. They responded by adding the pink cage monster and the jungle slime killers. To improve gameplay to narrative aspect of the game, which they did. I mean, it wouldn't have been a game without those. It would have just been a story, choose your own adventure. We added greater scope to the choices. They discarded a sidekick and reduced the path choosing choice from 2 paths to 1. Don't quite understand that. They added the choice of sustenance, which provided a choice of attack mechanic and a choice of whether to follow the fox or continue the village. So now the narrative choices targeted different aspects of gameplay: attack, platforming, attacking and minigame with a race dynamic. Losing the minigame results in an alternative game ending, which adds to the scope of the game. The other piece of feedback received during the labs was that multiple choice of paths would result in our game being too long, therefore we had to cut the game down good because we barely made it through.
Yeah.
And then a final piece of feedback was that the inspiration of the fox and the goat fabula was not clear in our game, or fable I think they meant. We responded to the feedback by adding the escape the well minigame, with the goat needing to escape the well because it blindly trusted the fox.
So I get what they were going for, and like the race to get out of the well before you run out of time in itself, I don't think like works with it doesn't contradict, but I don't think it really reinforces the theme of the story. What I found interesting, so in the desert they introduced that mechanic where you can press X to look ahead and see more of the platforms, and they're like, yeah, you need to like check where you're jumping, which obviously you don't see in the caves, which is kind of a shame, because it's really like the point where the mechanics are closest to reinforcing the theme. But it would have been nice in that final level to see maybe the well have like a more spread out, more complicated path where you have to then, use that mechanic to get a wider view of the well as a whole, so you can work out what the fastest route is.
Absolutely.
Like it would have both kind of tied those two parts together a bit more, and like made that seem less like a weird one-off encounter. And I don't think it wouldn't have been the best way to do so, but I think it would have at least gone a little way to adding some thematic aspects to the gameplay.
Yeah. Yep. So I think they heard the feedback, they articulated it, and I think they did introduce changes, but they were only somewhat successful.
Yeah. Don't get me wrong, if they hadn't made some of those changes, this would have been much worse. But yeah, I think it's getting that line up between the gameplay and the theme, they've not quite managed.
Yep, agreed. All right, I think that concludes our playing of The Thirsty Goat.